The movie starts with David, Queen, and Adam, who are high school students. They have built a drone for David's project, allowing them to control its movement with their hands. Christina, David's sister, flies the drone and records it with her camera. At that moment, David receives a phone call, causing him to lose control of the drone, which crashes to the ground. David is a brilliant student who dreams of studying at MIT. He sends the footage recorded by Christina to MIT's admission committee. A few days later, David's house receives an admission letter from MIT. However, he does not have enough money to afford the tuition fees. To pay the fees, his mother considers selling their house so David can attend MIT and fulfill his dream. But David is unhappy with his mother's decision, telling her that the house is his last memory of his father, which he doesn't want to lose. It is revealed that David's father died in a car crash when David was 7 years old. Later, David and Christina find an old camera in their father's attic with footage of David's 7th birthday. David and Christina sit together and connect their laptops to view the footage. David notices something strange. Alongside his 7-year-old self, his current version also appears in the footage, standing in front of a mirror. Confused, he immediately calls Queen and Adam to show them the footage. Everyone is surprised, initially thinking the footage has been photoshopped. When David shows them he is wearing the same clothes as in the footage, they believe him. David remembers his father was a scientist with a lab in the basement. Hoping to find clues, they all go to the lab. In the basement, they find a trapdoor and a box containing a small machine and some blueprints. They discover that David's father was working on a project called Project Almanac for the US Army, which involved building a time machine. Queen and Adam suggest they should build the time machine, but David hesitates. They convince him by arguing that without the time machine, David won't be able to revisit his 7th birthday and see his father again. David agrees, and they begin working on the time machine using the blueprint. They buy the necessary parts and succeed in creating an electromagnetic field on their first attempt, causing the bulbs on the table to light up. However, the batteries overheat and burst one by one. David uses his Xbox graphics processor to create a navigation program, allowing them to control the time machine. Adam connects his phone to the time machine for additional control. They prepare for a second attempt, with David explaining that the time machine can only go back 6 weeks. They need to split the power to return to the present, meaning they can only travel back 3 weeks. When they turn on the machine again, the electromagnetic field causes nearby objects to spin rapidly in the air. The batteries overload and explode once more, spilling water from a glass onto David's clothes, leaving a mark on his t-shirt. David recalls that he had the same mark on his clothes in the footage. With this, everyone guesses that they are very close to making the time machine. After the second unsuccessful attempt, David realizes that he needs power fusion to complete the time machine, which requires hydrogen. Hydrogen can only be purchased with a permit, but David remembers that his school has a hydrogen cylinder. David and his classmates break into the school and steal the hydrogen capsules from the pool. Back in the basement, they set up the time machine again. This time, they try to put a camera in a small toy car and send it back in time. However, the batteries overload and explode again. David then sees Jessie outside his house. Jessie, who attends the same school as David, is someone he has a crush on. He notices that she is heading to a nearby party. While she is at the party, David and his friends steal her car batteries. Using her batteries, they restart the time machine. Just as they do, Jessie arrives at David's basement and is surprised to see objects flying around. This time, they successfully send the toy car back in time. The lights in the entire city go out momentarily but come back on shortly after. They find the toy car embedded in the ceiling and discover from the camera footage that it had traveled 2 hours into the past. Now, Jessie is aware of their project. Jessie insists on joining David's group and suggests that instead of sending objects, they should travel to the past themselves. David initially refuses, considering it too risky, but eventually agrees after everyone insists. That night, David, Christina, Queen, Adam, and Jessie time travel together, taking themselves back a day. To confirm the success of their time travel, they enter Queen's house. David draws a smiley face on Queen's head, but then the current version of Queen wakes up. With 2 queens in the same timeline, their bodies start to flicker and almost disappear. The group quickly returns to the present. They realize that in any timeline, their present and past selves cannot coexist. Their successful time travel makes everyone happy, and they start brainstorming about what they can do with this power. Queen, who had failed his Viva test, time travels multiple times to retake it and finally passes. Christina, who was bullied by Sarah at school, uses time travel to take revenge. Adam wins the lottery in the past and gains $1.2 million, which they all share and use to buy their favorite things. David gives some money to his mother and keeps some for himself, using it to buy a sports car and powerful batteries to increase the time machine's capacity to travel further back in time. This is how their game continues for a few days. After a while, David calls everyone together after skipping class and reveals that he has acquired powerful batteries, allowing them to travel back 3 months in time. They decide to test it and find themselves at a party called Lollapalooza, where they have a lot of fun. During the party, Jessie shares her feelings with David, but he is too caught up in the excitement to understand, making Jessie angry, and she leaves. Back in the present, David realizes his mistake and decides to fix it by traveling back alone to the same party. This time, when Jessie shares her feelings, David kisses her and shares his feelings as well. Since this happened 3 months ago, when they return to the present, David discovers that he and Jessie are now a couple. This change indicates that altering the past has created a ripple effect, making them a couple. David and his friends continue to travel back in time and make so many changes that there are various ripple effects in their lives. These ripple effects occur because changing something in the past gradually alters the present timeline. For example, initially, Jessie gets angry and leaves, resulting in them not becoming a couple. But when David goes back to fix their relationship, they start a relationship. As David and his friends keep traveling back and altering the timeline, numerous ripple effects occur, significantly changing the present. These effects impact not only David and his friends, but also everyone around them. For instance, a boy named Justin, the captain of the basketball team, loses a match because of a car accident. Additionally, the girl who bullied Christina, Sarah, has a brother on the basketball team, and their father, a commercial pilot, dies in a plane crash due to the changed timeline. David feels responsible for these accidents and decides to stop them by traveling back alone. He saves Justin from the car accident, but when he returns to the present, the timeline has changed again. Now, his good friend Adam is hospitalized after an accident, and his condition is very bad. Feeling guilty, David goes back to his basement and decides to fix things. Jessie arrives and insists on joining him in his time travel. That night, David and Jessie travel back to the night of Adam's accident. Jessie asks David why he is traveling alone, and he explains everything, including how he fixed things with her. Hearing this, Jessie is deeply affected. However, the Jessie from this timeline appears, causing both Jessies to disappear suddenly. To fix everything, David realizes he must go back to his 7th birthday and destroy Project Almanac. But he has run out of hydrogen cans. Just then, the police arrive at his house to investigate Jessie's disappearance. David evades the police and returns to his school to get more hydrogen cans. He travels back to his 7th birthday, where he meets his father in the basement. David's father recognizes him and is happy to hear that David built a time machine using his blueprints. However, David's father has to leave, hugging David before he goes. After his father's death, David burns all the blueprints from Project Almanac and returns to the present. Because of these changes, the blueprints never existed, meaning David and his friends never built a time machine or traveled back in time. The movie ends with David and Christina finding their father's camera in the attic, but this time there is no reflection of David in the footage, indicating that the timeline is as it originally was. In the final scene, David approaches Jessie and starts a conversation, leading to a friendship. Regarding the movie's ending, where David destroys all the project details and returns to the present, this scenario presents a paradox known as the grandfather paradox. If David destroys everything in the past, logically, he shouldn't be able to travel in time or return to the future because, according to the ripple effect, he wouldn't have a time travel machine. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section. I'll see you in the next video.